War tested every leader. The human princess passed without fear. The human ships, sleek and functional, glided steadily through the void, their hulls humming with energy. Princess Serena stood on the command bridge of the flagship Aurora's Pride, her hands resting lightly on the railing. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the swirling patterns of space, the familiar hum of engines beneath her feet a comforting reminder of human ingenuity. The galaxy had heard of the Zelthari Armada, and the stories were chilling. They were conquerors of entire star systems, each leader tested and most broken. Every world that resisted their march had fallen, every leader who faced them had succumbed to fear, pride, or desperation. And now, the Zelthari had set their sights on the human colonies. Humans, they thought, were weak, unpredictable, and unworthy of the title civilized. Serena did not care for what the Zelthari thought. She had spent her life preparing for this moment. From childhood, she had been trained in strategy, leadership, and resilience. She had read the histories of humanity's survival, the countless trials that had tested the species: famine, war, disease, and environmental disasters. Humans had always adapted, always endured, and always risen, and she would be no different. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. A transmission arrived, simple yet direct, projected across every screen on the Aurora's Pride. The Zelthari had created a war arena, a simulation of their making, designed to push leaders to their limits. It was not a battlefield in the conventional sense. It was a labyrinth of illusions, traps, and moral dilemmas, each one meant to break resolve. Serena entered the arena with a small escort, her steps measured and confident. The air shimmered around her, and suddenly the floor beneath her feet shifted. She was no longer on her ship. She stood on a bridge that arched over a chasm of fire, flames licking at the metal supports. Holographic soldiers advanced from every side, their weapons glowing with lethal energy. Her first reaction was calm. She took a deep breath and assessed the situation. She noted the strength of the bridge, the angle of attack, and the patterns in the soldiers' movements. She did not panic. Humans were not the strongest species nor the fastest, but they were clever, and cleverness could be as deadly as brute strength. "Divert the bridge supports downward by 10 degrees, she commanded her escort, her voice steady. "Lure them to the center. Then collapse the left side to isolate the attackers." Her officers hesitated, unsure if the commands would work in this simulated environment, but they obeyed. The holographic soldiers moved as she predicted, trapped by their own aggression. The bridge tilted and the illusions fell away. Serena stepped forward, unshaken, her boots echoing on the metal floor. The observers, invisible yet present, could sense it. They had seen thousands of leaders fail in this arena. None had walked forward with such certainty. None had manipulated the illusion with such precision. The simulations changed constantly. Walls erupted with fire, the floor cracked beneath her, and the shadows of distant stars became a storm of blinding light. Each hazard tested not just her physical courage, but her mind, her creativity, and her ability to inspire those around her. Every human in the arena with her followed her commands without hesitation, their trust in her unwavering. Hours passed, though time felt meaningless. She was presented with moral dilemmas: save a ship of civilians and risk her army, or sacrifice them for strategic advantage. Each choice was a trap, a test of her values and her understanding of leadership. And every time, she chose in a way that honored both human life and strategy. By the time the simulation ended, the observers were silent. Their psychic probes and sensors had recorded every heartbeat, every thought, and every decision. The result was unexpected. The human princess had passed without fear. Not because she was immune to danger or pain, but because she understood that fear was not weakness, it was a tool. She wielded it, controlled it, and refused to be controlled by it. Back on the bridge of the Aurora's Pride, Serena's face was calm, her hair slightly tousled by the mental strain of the simulation. She turned to her officers, who were visibly shaken but proud. "They think they can test us because we are humans," she said softly. "But they do not understand what that truly means. We survive, we adapt, and we rise where others fall. Remember that." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Across the human fleet, messages were transmitted and morale soared. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. Their ships were smaller, their fleets fewer, their weapons less advanced in raw power. But they had something no simulation, no weapon, and no alien could predict: the unyielding human spirit. As the fleet moved closer to the edge of the Arkan Void, reports arrived from reconnaissance teams. The Zelthari were assembling near the neutral planet of Trellis, a world rich in resources and strategically vital. Every leader before Serena had faced this challenge and failed. They had broken under pressure, turned on their allies, or surrendered. But Serena had no intention of surrendering. She gathered her council in the strategy room, a circular chamber lined with holographic maps and star charts. "We are outnumbered and the Zelthari are powerful," she said, her voice calm and commanding. "But they have underestimated humans for centuries. That mistake will be their downfall." Her council listened intently. Her chief strategist, Lieutenant Kale, spoke next. "We have three options: direct engagement, guerrilla tactics, or diplomatic overtures. Direct engagement is suicidal. Guerrilla tactics could slow them but may not stop them. Diplomacy is unlikely to succeed with these conquerors, but it could buy time." Serena considered each option carefully. Her mind raced through possibilities, weighing risks and benefits. Then she spoke, her decision clear. "We will combine them. We will use our unpredictability as a weapon. Small teams will harass their supply lines, decoys will mislead their fleets, and our diplomats will open channels where possible. Every move they expect will be a trap, and when they think they have us cornered, we will act in ways they cannot anticipate." The council nodded, some in awe, some in disbelief. They had never seen a human princess think like this, not only in strategy, but in the understanding of fear, chaos, and hope. Serena smiled faintly, knowing that the true test had only begun. The Zelthari were formidable, but they had never faced a human mind fully awake, fully aware, and fully fearless. As night fell over the human fleet, the stars outside shimmered like distant jewels. Serena walked the length of the bridge, observing her crew, her officers, and her people. She felt a deep connection to them, a bond that went beyond command. Humans thrived not just on individual strength, but on unity, trust, and the willingness to sacrifice for each other. That was the edge the galaxy had never accounted for. She paused at the observation deck, looking out at the void. Somewhere in that darkness, the Zelthari Armada waited, confident in their power. They did not know that humans were not merely fighters. They were survivors, innovators, and thinkers. And they did not know that their tests, their illusions, and their psychic assaults would never break a human who understood what it meant to endure. A message arrived from Earth. "Good luck, Princess. Humanity believes in you." Serena's lips curved in a small, determined smile. Luck had little to do with it. It was preparation, courage, and the indomitable will of a species that had survived against impossible odds. She was not just a leader, she was a symbol. The first wave of Zelthari probes appeared on the sensors, ships moving in precise formations, their weapons ready. Serena gave a final order to her fleet. "Prepare for engagement. Trust your instincts. Trust each other. And above all, remember why we fight. Humanity is not defined by fear, but by courage. Let them see that." The Aurora's pride led the fleet forward, engines blazing, lights cutting through the darkness. Every human aboard felt the same surge of determination, the same unshakable belief in their princess and their species. They were not just going to survive the test. They were going to pass it with a defiance the Zelthari would never forget. In the silent void of space, the first battle loomed, but Princess Serena felt no fear. She had already faced the impossible in the war arena, and she had emerged unbroken. The real test was coming, but she knew one thing with certainty. The galaxy had never truly measured human courage, and when it did, it would be stunned. Her eyes met the holographic projection of the Trellis system, distant and glowing with promise. She whispered to herself, a vow as much as a statement of fact. "We will pass every test. We will endure, and we will rise." And with that, the human princess stepped fully into the shadows of the Arkan Void, calm, fearless, and ready for the trials that awaited her. The Zelthari believed they were testing a leader. They had not yet realized that they were about to witness the strength of an entire species, channeled through one resolute human mind. The stars stretched endlessly, but Serena's gaze did not waver. She was a human, and humans never broke. The dark emptiness of the Arkan Void pressed heavily against the human fleet as they approached Trellis. Princess Serena stood on the observation deck of the Aurora's Pride, watching the stars drift past like frozen fires. Her mind was calm, but inside every thought was active, calculating, predicting. She knew the Zelthari were already preparing their next challenge. Their first test, the simulation, had failed to break her. Now they would attempt something more subtle, more dangerous, a test of the mind. The message arrived quietly, almost as a whisper across the comms. All human leaders in the fleet were instructed to report to a designated vessel, one of the largest and most intimidating in the Zelthari armada. It was a psychic testing chamber, designed to exploit fear, guilt, and doubt. Every leader who entered had returned broken, their minds shattered by visions so real they could not distinguish illusion from reality. Serena stepped onto the deck of the Zelthari vessel alone, her small escort remaining behind. The air inside the chamber was cold and still, yet it pulsed with energy, a weight that pressed against her thoughts. The walls glimmered faintly, and then the room shifted. She was no longer in the ship. She stood in a field of shadows, each one moving independently, whispering in voices that cut into her mind. "Failure, you cannot save them, they will die." The shadows coalesced into visions of her homeworld. Earth burned under Zelthari weapons, cities crumbled. Families screamed for her to save them, yet her hands were tied and every attempt failed. Serena's heart ached, but she did not falter. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. Fear was only part of the mind, not the whole. She had trained for this. She had endured worse in practice than the Zelthari could imagine. Images shifted. Her crew, her officers, her people, fallen one by one. She felt the pull of despair, a gravity that tried to drag her into hopelessness. Yet she remembered the history of her species. Humans had survived plagues that wiped out millions. They had endured wars that consumed continents. They had colonized worlds that should have killed them, and they had always found a way to rise. "Humans survive," she whispered to herself. "We endure and we fight back." The visions became more personal. She saw herself fail in leadership, making decisions that led to catastrophe. Shadows whispered doubts. "You are unfit. You cannot lead them." "They will hate you." The Zelthari had studied countless leaders and knew that pride and insecurity could destroy resolve. Many had fallen under this pressure, broken not by enemy weapons, but by their own fears. Serena clenched her fists and focused. Her mind reached outward, seeking the strength of her crew, of every human who had ever endured hardship. She remembered the engineers who had kept ships running despite impossible odds, the farmers who had grown crops on barren worlds, the soldiers who had fought against overwhelming enemies. She drew upon their courage, their creativity, their unshakable determination. Then she acted. She moved through the illusions, touching the shadows with intent, not fear. Each step she took altered the visions. Flames became paths, shadows became allies, and whispers of doubt were replaced with voices of hope and strategy. She realized that the test was not about enduring terror. It was about using the mind to shape reality, even when reality itself tried to break you. Hours seemed to pass, though time had no meaning in the psychic field. Serena faced visions of her family, of the crew of the Aurora's Pride, of billions of humans across the colonies. Each vision tried to manipulate her, to make her abandon her principles, to make her act in panic. And each time, she responded with clarity. She made decisions grounded in logic, in human ingenuity, and in the courage that had carried her people across centuries. When the psychic chamber finally released her, the Zelthari observers were silent. Their probes had found no trace of fear, no hesitation, no weakness. Every other leader had succumbed. Every other species had broken. Serena had passed where others had failed, not because she was immune to fear, but because she understood it, controlled it, and refused to let it dominate her. Back on the Aurora's Pride, Serena's officers gathered around, their faces a mixture of awe and relief. Lieutenant Kale approached her cautiously. "Princess, the reports say they've never seen anything like this. No leader has ever resisted their psychic tests." "How did you do it?" Serena looked at him, calm but resolute. "They can create illusions, they can simulate fear, they can whisper lies into your mind. But humans, we do not rely solely on our senses. We rely on our minds, our hearts, and our will. Fear does not control us unless we let it, and I will never let it." The officers nodded, inspired. Across the fleet, messages went out. Humans were underestimated in every corner of the galaxy, yet their resilience and determination could not be measured by brute strength or technology. It was something deeper, something that could not be scanned or calculated, the human spirit. The next challenge came as they approached Trellis. The Zelthari had dispatched envoys, a test of diplomacy intertwined with intimidation. The planet's surface was lush and vibrant, a sharp contrast to the cold emptiness of space. Cities sprawled across continents, populated by millions, all under the watchful eyes of the Zelthari. Their fleets hovered in orbit, ready to strike at the first sign of resistance. Serena landed on the surface with a small contingent of human diplomats and officers. The Zelthari envoys awaited her, their forms imposing, their expressions unreadable. They did not speak in words alone. Their presence was a psychological pressure, an invisible weight meant to intimidate, to break resolve. Serena stood tall, her posture calm and commanding. "We come to discuss terms," she said plainly. Her voice did not waver. "We wish to ensure the safety of the inhabitants of Trellis. Violence is unnecessary if we can reach understanding." The Zelthari were silent for a long moment. Then one of them spoke, a voice resonant and cold, echoing in the minds of those present. "No leader has faced the challenges of the Armada and survived. Your species is weak, your logic flawed. You will bend or break." Serena did not respond with words alone. She projected calm, resolve, and intelligence through her posture, her gaze, and her presence. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was a weapon. The Zelthari expected fear, but they found none. They expected hesitation, but Serena acted with precision and clarity. Over the course of the following hours, negotiations became a test of strategy. Each side probed for weaknesses, each word a potential trap. Serena navigated the discussion with care, balancing firmness with insight. She used her knowledge of human history, culture, and psychology to anticipate the Zelthari's moves. Every counterargument was met with reasoning, every threat neutralized with calm logic. In the end, the Zelthari envoys left, bewildered and frustrated. No human leader had ever passed such a combined test of mind, courage, and diplomacy. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. The human princess was unbreakable. Not because she was invincible, but because she had the rarest strength of all, the ability to endure, adapt, and inspire hope in the face of overwhelming adversity. As night fell on Trellis, Serena walked the surface, observing the people she had vowed to protect. They looked to her with hope, unaware of the trials she had endured. She smiled faintly. Leadership was not about showing power, it was about instilling confidence, courage, and trust. Humans had survived countless challenges, and they would survive this one too, not because of weapons, but because of their will to endure. Her mind turned to the future. The Zelthari were formidable, and their fleet in orbit remained a threat. But she had already proven something that no simulation or psychic chamber could measure. Humans did not fear tests. Humans did not break under pressure, and the galaxy had underestimated them for the last time. In the silent night, Princess Serena looked up at the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. The Zelthari believed they were testing her. They had not realized that they were witnessing the strength of an entire species, concentrated in one resolute human mind. And that strength was only beginning to show. The fleet prepared for the next phase, small strike teams ready to test the enemy, engineers preparing new countermeasures, diplomats ready to challenge expectations. And through it all, Serena remained calm, unshaken, a beacon of the human spirit. Fear had no place in her mind, only resolve. She had passed the psychic trial, survived the moral test, and emerged stronger. The galaxy would soon learn that the human princess was not just a leader, she was a symbol of humanity's courage, creativity, and endurance. The Zelthari believed they could test every leader. They had never faced a species that would pass without fear. And Serena knew, with a certainty as steady as the stars themselves, that humanity had only just begun to show its true strength. The Trellis system shimmered under the distant light of its sun, a planet of vivid green forests, sparkling oceans, and cities that stretched across continents. From orbit, it seemed peaceful, untouched by war, but the truth was far darker. The Zelthari Armada had already deployed dozens of warships around the planet, a web of steel and fire meant to trap the human fleet before it could land. Every other species that faced such odds had already surrendered, their leaders crushed under fear and strategy. But Princess Serena did not flinch. From the command bridge of the Aurora's Pride, she observed the enemy's formations. Her officers were tense, some pacing, others gripping consoles tightly. Despite her calm exterior, Serena's mind was racing, calculating every possibility. The Zelthari expected human weakness, predictable maneuvers, and fear-driven errors. They would be wrong. Humans thrived on unpredictability, on thinking where others did not, and on courage that could ignite even the most desperate situation. "Status report," Serena commanded, her voice steady. Lieutenant Kale, her chief strategist, replied, "They've formed a perimeter around Trellis. Their firepower is overwhelming. Any direct engagement would be suicide." Serena nodded as if she had expected this. "We will not fight conventionally. Prepare strike teams for immediate deployment. Small ships only. We will hit their supply lines, disable their communications, and sow confusion. Humans do not follow the expected path. That is our weapon." The human fleet moved like a shadow, small vessels peeling away from the main formation, weaving through the gaps in the Zelthari lines. Serena watched with satisfaction as each strike team executed maneuvers that her officers had suggested might be too risky. The humans moved with courage and precision, their unpredictability confusing the enemy. Holographic decoys projected false fleets, drawing Zelthari ships into traps where ambushes awaited. In orbit above Trellis, chaos unfolded among the Zelthari. They had studied every species in the galaxy, but humans were different. No pattern could predict them, no expectation could contain them. Serena's orders were precise, yet fluid, leaving room for creativity and quick thinking, the hallmark of her species. On the surface, human engineers and soldiers coordinated in a synchronized ballet. Communications that the Zelthari attempted to jam were rerouted through clever redundancies. Supply depots were rigged to create controlled explosions, forcing enemy ships to retreat to avoid damage. Every human action was calculated yet adaptive, turning every weakness into strength. Hours into the conflict, Serena received intelligence that a major Zelthari strike force was moving to intercept one of her decoy fleets. The enemy assumed they were about to corner the humans, to destroy the smaller ships before they could execute their plan. Serena did not hesitate. "Lead them into the canyon formation near the northern pole. We've mapped it carefully. Terrain will work in our favor." Lieutenant Kale frowned. "It's risky, Princess. If the ambush fails, we could lose half the strike team." Serena's eyes met his. "Risk is inevitable. Fear is optional. Trust in your crew and trust in humanity." The strike team moved into the canyon as the Zelthari pursuers closed in. At the precise moment, hidden weapons and human ships emerged from the shadows, cutting off escape routes. Electronic warfare disrupted the enemy's targeting systems, and missiles designed for maximum precision struck the Zelthari fleet. Panic spread among the alien forces, a confusion they had never anticipated. On the bridge of the Aurora's Pride, Serena smiled faintly. "They are learning the hard way that humans are not predictable and that courage can be contagious. Watch how it spreads." Her sensors confirmed the ripple effect. Observing ships hesitated, their crews faltered, and even smaller alien fleets outside the immediate conflict paused. The human spirit was infectious, a force that the Zelthari had never encountered in a species they had deemed weak. The battle intensified. Zelthari command ships attempted coordinated strikes, but every attack was countered by human ingenuity. Small squads of engineers hacked enemy targeting systems mid-flight, turning weapons back on the attackers. Decoy drones lured warships into zones of heavy fire, while human pilots executed maneuvers impossible by conventional standards. Amidst the chaos, Serena did not simply give orders, she inspired her people. She moved through communication channels with calm authority, issuing directives and encouragement in equal measure. "Remember what we fight for, protect each other, trust your instincts, innovate, adapt." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of belief, the kind that could lift even the most exhausted soldier. On the surface, the civilians of Trellis watched in awe as humans executed precise maneuvers, their ships darting like fish among predators. Many had assumed the Zelthari's presence meant imminent doom. Now hope grew in their hearts, a fragile yet powerful force. Humans did not fight like other species. They fought with courage, creativity, and the understanding that survival was not a gift, but a right earned through ingenuity and unity. As the sun rose over Trellis, painting the sky with reds and golds, Serena's fleet had managed something extraordinary. Though outnumbered and outgunned, they had disrupted the Zelthari advance, captured a small number of warships, and more importantly, demonstrated that humans could fight with intelligence and courage unmatched by any other species. Reports came in of individual acts of heroism. Pilots had flown into near-impossible conditions to protect allies. Engineers had repaired critical systems in the middle of battle. Diplomats had negotiated with neutral factions to secure unexpected reinforcements. Every story echoed one truth: humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and utterly fearless in the face of overwhelming odds. Serina's mind remained focused. She knew this was only the beginning. The Zelthari were formidable, but they had underestimated human creativity, courage, and strategy. Every victory, however small, built a foundation for what was to come. She prepared for the next phase, aware that the greatest test might not be strategy or technology, but leadership itself. Late in the cycle, intelligence detected a secondary threat: a hidden fleet of Zelthari warships prepared to ambush humans as they celebrated their initial success. Many officers advised caution, suggesting a retreat to safer positions, but Serina had anticipated this. She turned to Lieutenant Kale. "We will use their overconfidence against them. Prepare a trap using the northern asteroid belt. Decoy ships will draw them in, and our hidden fleet will flank from the shadows. Timing is everything." Kale nodded, respect evident in his eyes. "You always see the path we can't." Serina allowed herself a brief smile. Humans had survived countless wars, countless disasters, because they saw beyond the obvious, acted where others hesitated, and embraced risk with courage. "It is not seeing," she said quietly. "It is believing, believing that humans endure." The trap was set. As the Zelthari fleet pursued the decoy ships into the asteroid belt, human vessels emerged from hidden positions, striking from unexpected angles. Missile barrages hit key enemy ships, electronic systems were disrupted, and chaos spread among the armada. The humans had transformed a potential disaster into a decisive advantage. On the bridge of the Aurora's Pride, Serina observed the outcome. The Zelthari were forced to retreat, their formations shattered, their confidence shaken. No species had ever survived such a display of human strategy and courage. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but did not linger. The battle was far from over. Human casualties were present, of course, but they were minimal compared to the damage inflicted on the enemy. Serina made certain that every life saved, every risk calculated, and every victory achieved would be remembered. Humans did not fight merely to win. They fought to prove their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unbreakable spirit. As night fell over Trellis once more, Serina stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars above. Each point of light seemed to echo with the possibilities that lay ahead. The Zelthari would regroup. They would challenge humanity again in ways more dangerous and unpredictable. But Serina knew the truth. Humans had a gift no other species could claim. They were courageous, adaptable, and unbroken. They survived when others failed. They innovated when others froze. They inspired when others despaired. The human princess allowed herself one thought, quiet and certain: this was not the end of the conflict, but it was proof. Humanity could endure anything. They could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the greatest conquerors in the galaxy. The Zelthari had assumed they could intimidate and crush human will. They had failed, and they would fail again. Her officers gathered, tired but inspired. Reports of victories, acts of heroism, and strategic successes filled the room. Serina addressed them with calm authority, her voice carrying the weight of belief. "We have faced the impossible and emerged stronger. Remember this: we fight not because we are fearless, but because we choose courage over despair. We fight not because we are invincible, but because we endure. Humanity thrives where others falter." The council nodded, their respect and loyalty deepened. Across the fleet, messages circulated. Humans had turned a battle against impossible odds into a display of unmatched courage and strategy. Their unpredictability, ingenuity, and determination had shaken even the greatest conquerors. Princess Serina's gaze returned to the stars. The Zelthari believed they had tested every leader. They had not yet realized that the true test was not in the battlefield, nor in psychic assaults, nor in simulations. It was in leadership, vision, and the unyielding human spirit. And humanity, guided by a princess who refused to yield, had passed that test with brilliance, courage, and a spark that would ignite the galaxy. The stars of Trellis glimmered in the dark sky, and among them, Serina's fleet moved with purpose, courage, and an unbreakable will. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The Zelthari would return, and they would challenge humanity again. But now they knew something they could not undo. Humans were fearless when they believed in themselves, and their spirit could not be measured, contained, or defeated. Princess Serena remained calm, her eyes reflecting the glow of distant suns. She had led her people through chaos, fear, and overwhelming odds, and she knew with unwavering certainty that the greatest triumphs of humanity were still to come. The Trellis system was quiet now, but the tension in orbit remained thick. The Zelthari Armada, once confident and unyielding, had been tested and challenged in ways they had never anticipated. Smaller human fleets had outmaneuvered them, strike teams had disrupted their logistics, and even in the heat of battle, human courage had reshaped the battlefield. Yet the Zelthari were not defeated. They were calculating, waiting for a chance to reclaim control and assert dominance. Princess Serena stood on the observation deck of the Aurora's Pride, gazing at the largest vessel in the enemy fleet. Its hull gleamed darkly against the stars, enormous and intimidating, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. Inside that ship sat the supreme commander of the Zelthari Armada, a figure feared across countless systems for crushing civilizations without mercy. Every species had faltered under his presence, every leader had bowed or broken. Now he awaited the humans. Serena's mind was calm, but her thoughts were active. She understood that this confrontation would not only test her fleet's strategy and courage, but also her ability to lead, negotiate, and inspire. The Zelthari expected fear, perhaps even panic. They assumed that humans, untested against a commander of this magnitude, would crumble. She had no intention of proving them right. Her officers stood behind her, ready for action, yet they, too, sensed the magnitude of what was to come. Lieutenant Kale approached quietly. "Princess, the commander is expecting submission, isn't he?" Serena shook her head, her expression serene. "He expects fear, not resolve. He expects weakness, not creativity. We will give him something he cannot anticipate, a human mind that refuses to bend, and a species that will not be broken." The Supreme Commander's ship moved, gliding smoothly into a holding position near the human fleet. Its communications channel opened, displaying the alien figure in full. Towering, armored, and radiating authority, he looked directly at Serena. His voice resonated across the comms, a deep echo that seemed to press against the minds of those listening. "Human princess," he said, cold and commanding, "your species is insignificant, your fleets are weak, your tactics predictable. You have survived only because your enemies have underestimated you. Submit now or witness the destruction of your colonies." Serena met his gaze through the comms, calm and unwavering. "We do not submit, we endure, and we believe in our right to survive, to lead, and to protect our people." Her voice carried not only defiance but confidence, courage, and clarity. The commander's eyes narrowed. He had crushed kings and generals alike, all of whom had faltered in less challenging confrontations. Humans were supposed to be weaker, fearful, and predictable. Yet here stood a princess commanding a fleet and speaking with authority that rivaled his own. His curiosity was piqued, though he would never admit it. "Weapons at the ready," Serena commanded her officers, "but hold fire, observation first, strategy second, courage always." The fleet moved into position, a calculated display of discipline and readiness. Small ships remained in striking positions, decoys projected holographic fleets, and electronic countermeasures hummed quietly, waiting to disrupt enemy targeting. The humans were ready to fight, but more importantly, they were ready to think, to innovate, to survive. The Supreme Commander extended an offer, a test in itself. "You may fight, but know this, your efforts are futile, or you may negotiate and we may spare your people from annihilation. Choose wisely." Serena paused, considering the words. Humans were clever, adaptable, and unpredictable. A direct battle, even with their ingenuity, could risk massive loss. But negotiation was not surrender. It could be a strategic move, a way to turn the enemy's assumptions against them. She made her decision, firm and deliberate. "We will negotiate," she said. "Not because we are weak, but because we see a path that benefits all parties. The people of Trellis and every human colony deserve protection, autonomy, and peace. Violence is not the only measure of strength." The Supreme Commander's expression shifted slightly, a subtle sign of surprise. No species had ever spoken to him with such calm authority, such clarity of purpose, or such refusal to submit. He had expected fear, not reasoned defiance. Serena continued, laying out her vision. We propose a council where conquered or threatened worlds may retain autonomy while contributing to collective security. Humans offer cooperation, innovation, and alliance. We do not demand tribute, nor do we seek domination. But we will protect what we have built and we will defend life. That is our nature. The Zelthari were silent. The humans' audacity, their clarity, and their unwavering belief had shifted the balance. This was not surrender. This was strategy, diplomacy, and courage intertwined. The Supreme Commander realized that humans were not merely fighting for survival. They were asserting their intelligence, creativity, and resilience. Your logic is unexpected, he admitted finally. Few species would dare to offer negotiation under these conditions. Yet your words are not empty. Humans are different than I assumed. Serena nodded, maintaining eye contact. We are different. We endure, adapt, and rise. Fear is not our master. Courage is our choice. And every species under our protection has the right to survive without domination. The commander studied her, evaluating, calculating. The humans had survived simulations, psychic assaults, and battles far beyond what he expected any species to endure. Their unpredictability, their ingenuity, and their courage had upended everything he believed about leadership and strength. Finally, he spoke. Very well, human princess, we will withdraw our forces for now. We will consider your proposal, though I make no promises about future actions. Know this, your species has intrigued me. You have survived where many would fall. Serena allowed a small, measured smile. Victory was not complete. Wars were rarely ever truly over. But she had achieved something that mattered more than destruction. She had proven that humans were resilient, intelligent, and capable of leadership on a galactic scale. She had passed the ultimate test, not through fearlessness alone, but through courage, strategy, and vision. The human fleet exhaled collectively, relief and pride evident in every officer and crew member. Across Trellis, humans celebrated quietly, aware that their princess had not only protected them, but had demonstrated something more profound. Humanity's enduring spirit could not be underestimated. Serena returned to the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Zelthari would regroup as all powerful forces did. But they had learned something that could not be unlearned. Humans were not weak, nor predictable, nor easily intimidated. They had ingenuity, courage, and an unyielding will to survive. Across the galaxy, stories spread. Humans had faced the greatest conquerors, survived psychic and moral tests, outmaneuvered a superior fleet, and negotiated with a leader who had crushed countless civilizations. The truth was clear. Humanity's strength was not in raw power alone, but in creativity, adaptability, and courage. Lieutenant Kale approached Serena, his respect evident. Princess, you have done something extraordinary. No species has faced the Zelthari Supreme Commander and remained unbroken. How did you know what to do? Serena shook her head gently. I did not know in the sense of certainty. I relied on what humans have always relied on, our ability to think, adapt, and endure. We survive not because we are perfect, but because we refuse to surrender to fear and we trust each other. That is strength no weapon can measure. Her words resonated, not only with her officers, but with every human watching, listening, or hearing the stories later. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, but that underestimation had become their greatest weapon. Every species that doubted them learned, slowly and painfully, that humans could endure trials that others could not. As the fleet moved through orbit, Serena considered the future. Diplomacy would continue, and vigilance was necessary. The Zelthari were far from defeated, and other threats loomed across the galaxy. But humanity had proven something timeless. Fear could be faced and controlled, challenges could be overcome with intelligence and courage, and leadership was not about domination. It was about inspiring others to rise, survive, and endure. On the surface of Trellis, humans celebrated quietly yet fiercely. Families and communities honored the courage of the fleet and the princess who led them. They did not celebrate violence. They celebrated resilience, ingenuity, and hope. Humans had survived, yes, but more importantly, they had affirmed what they had always known. Survival required more than weapons. It required spirit, vision, and unyielding courage. Serena stood once more on the observation deck, the glow of distant suns reflecting off her eyes. She thought of Earth, the colonies, her people, and every human who had endured against impossible odds. The Zelthari had expected fear. They had witnessed courage. They had assumed humans were weak. They had underestimated an entire species, and that mistake would echo through the stars for generations. The human princess had faced simulations, psychic trials, and a superior enemy fleet. She had led her people with clarity, courage, and ingenuity. And she had done something more profound than survive. She had shown the galaxy what humanity truly was, not just a species of flesh and bone, but a species of thought, creativity, and spirit. A species that could endure, adapt, and rise in the face of impossible odds. A species that could pass every test without fear. And as Princess Serena looked at the stars, she knew the truth that would guide humanity forward. Their greatest strength was not in what they wielded, but in who they were. And that was a force no conqueror, no fleet, and no empire could ever destroy. The galaxy had witnessed the courage of humans. The Zelthari had underestimated them, and humanity would never be underestimated again. War tested every leader. The human princess passed without fear.